So welcome back to Chats with Dr. Ted. We have Dr. Ted with us here, who is a psychiatrist based in Toronto, Canada, who's going to talk about a very interesting and new term with us today, insomnophobia. Um, Hi, Dr. Ted. Thank you for being here with us today. How did you sleep last night?
Oh, let's see. Not bad. So I'm the lucky ones. But so many other people I know really have a struggle with sleep, don't you think?
Absolutely. Many people have the habits to pop a pill, have a habit to just expect that we close our eyes and we fall asleep. So absolutely, I feel like I've seen this issue around me and around my clients as well.
I mean, sleep is important, but then actually it has made to be even more important when you start to read health stories about, oh boy, if you don't have enough sleep, you'll have easier to have heart attack and everything. I mean, like this actually even make that anxiety about sleep even more so. So I think that that's actually starting on the wrong foot, because one of the most uh, important factors that perpetuates sleep problem is insomnophobia, a term I made up to refer to the fear of not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the topic we'll explore today.
Insomnophobia. It's a
Mhm.
very new term. I don't usually hear a lot. Insomnia, absolutely.
Uh,
What does that mean? What does insomnophobia
oh,
mean?
I mean, a phobia is an irrational fear. And then for example, you have many types of phobia, right? You have a phobia of spider and other things, and but when it is irrational, then it means that it doesn't really objectively should cause so much worry, and those amount of worry actually is affecting your health. So that's what's happened with a lot of people with insomnia, in that they worry so much about it. They worry that, oh, tomorrow I cannot work, or they fear about that they will affect my health. And then and they try very hard to sleep. And they try so hard that it's a nightly struggle. And then they develop this phobia, not just about insomnia. Sometimes they have a phobia about their bed. They even
Mm.
see the bed, they already get anxious. And worse still, some of my patients will see, okay, it's getting dark. Is that time for the struggle again? Oh my gosh, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
How can you sleep when you have such a lot of struggle going on in your mind, right?
Absolutely. And every night, my goodness, I mean, nights come every, I don't know, like 12 hours, 24 hours.
Yes.
It's a constant cycle where people sound like they're going through.
When these things are repeated every night for a long time, you basically expect it and get more and more afraid of it. So
Mm.
this insomnophobia would gradually get bigger and bigger, and often becomes the primary cause for the insomnia.
Right. And it's interesting and ironic in a way because it sounds like people do want to sleep to function, but in fact what's happening to them in their minds and in their bodies is counterproductive. It's making them prevent sleep. It's making them missing out on such a key part in our lifestyle. Oh, that it's a very big struggle to have every single night. I can see that could be very common, especially how many nights we have in our lifetime.
So how do we make it better? So I think one thing that, again, like in all these series, I try to understand the phenomenon first before suggesting any change.
Mhm.
So to understand it, one is that our mind actually in this busy, hectic life in a big city, our mind are actually so busy. It sometimes never had a break from morning till night, from the time you
Mhm.
get up till you go to bed. So the mind is used to really jumping all around. Sometimes it's because of work, other things they demanding your attention, but sometimes just automatically they just jump around on many topics, relevant or not. And that is what I call the monkey mind. It
Mm,
jumps from one thing to another, not knowing actually where you want to settle down on.
right.
And to deal with this monkey mind is something that we have to find some way. That is what I would like to address. If people's sleep, initially falling asleep, is particularly affected by all the ruminations in their head that they cannot
Yeah.
control. In fact, many patients tell me they cannot be controlled. So just acknowledge defeat. So there's no way I
Mm,
can control it. This monkey. Yeah. But in fact, we could. So that's what we'll talk about a bit later. Another idea is about the fact that there's a thing called diurnal rhythm in our
yeah.
bodily function. It applies to our hormonal status and other things. Things get changed following the sun, and sleep is one thing. Actually,
Mm,
when the sun comes down, actually it's indication from nature that we should be about to go to bed.
right.
Not that you all do that, okay? Because you see, before there were electricity or lights, right?
Yeah.
These dim lights, you cannot do too much of the candle.
Yeah.
So it is natural that people follow the sun. But now, with all these technology, we don't have to follow the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the phone, right?
Yes.
It keeps on happening. Things are happening there. You don't want to miss out. So in a way, the light that the 24 hours can be totally sleepless.
Mm,
So the diurnal rhythm is biologically, we are still built to go with the rhythm.
right.
So even if you don't go to sleep, at sundown and get up when sunrise, but at least around that time. So
Yes.
I think we need to get a fixed wake up time that is in the morning. And that is one issue for a lot of shift worker, then that is an issue. But anyway, that's the second thing to understand, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So looking at addressing the monkey mind now, okay, then I think we need to have some time before sleep to let the monkey calm down.
Mm.
We have to tame that monkey. How do you tame the monkey? Do you have any way to tame your monkey, Ashley?
Taming my monkey, I definitely can relate to I love how you described it, like a monkey jumping all over the place, not knowing why it's there, not knowing, just everywhere. Something that I like to do is I pop, there's a lot of meditation apps nowadays, and just even having that white noise in the background, it helps me to calm that monkey, to put those thoughts away. I also like to have this image that I took away from a training from mindfulness and meditation, to imagine you're looking in a sky and it's like each cloud is passing by, and I put my thoughts into each cloud that I see coming by. So not taking away, not forcing it away, but at a rhythm where I can, place it and tuck it in, and, give it attention in the next day. These are some of the things I like to do to tame my monkey.
Yes, that's really good. I think you mentioned basically two things. One thing is to use sound or music to get you into the realm of music, which is relaxing, and then thereby relaxing your mind.
Mhm.
So actually, it is important actually that you give the mind something to, like your clouds and other things to look at, as you
Mhm.
allow the monkey to settle down. So just sitting there waiting for sleep is the worst thing, because all you think of would be sleep.
Mhm.
So you need to have something to get you away from that idea of not sleeping. So music or meditative tapes or something like that would be one aspect. And the other would be, maybe you would like to have a picture book or something you can flip. And then you would like it to be a bit boring, but that is actually a good mind state to be a bit bored.
Mm.
And then that actually is very close to relax. So,
Oh.
so in a way, getting the mind state to be that by focusing on reading something, but reading the phone or using TV is not good, right?
Absolutely.
You know that, right?
Yep, I definitely am a culprit of taking my phone and looking at it when I can't sleep, and I think that just makes me even more awake.
Yeah, it is so common, you know. And one of the things is that you need to have your phone away from your bed, okay?
Mhm.
So it is very hard to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then also because they have blue lights emitted, okay,
Yes.
particularly from the TV. So, and also when you watch movies or other things excite your news, that's a bad idea, right?
Hmm.
So that is one aspect in taming the monkey. And some cultural groups actually have their cultural traditional methods. You know, we
Oh,
being Chinese, have you heard of people doing foot soaking?
no.
They soak their feet in warm water for 10, 15 minutes, or even massaging the bottom of the feet.
Oh.
They said that helps. So there are many things that helps. Or some people saying drinking milk, other things. I don't think I would give out this advice, but if you do have them, try them, it works, you can do it.
Hmm.
Right? Mhm. Okay. Now, but one of the problem, as I said, is oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to talk about actually diurnal rhythm part.
Oh, go
Because
for it.
because deciding when to sleep, okay? If you are going to get up at 8 in the morning, generally you need 8 hours sleep,
Hmm.
then you would aim at sleeping at 12. Now, if you sleep too early at 9 or so, then of course it would not really be easy. But you may be very tired and you sleep at 9 that night. But the next day, probably you would be waking up maybe a bit early, and the next night may be also, hard for you to fall asleep so quickly.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think if we set a regular time for waking up, get back 8 hours, that would be your desired time to go to bed and sleep. Then you do all those things we talk about, taming the monkey part, for the hour or so before the bedtime. And
Hmm.
even if the bedtime comes and you still don't feel too sleepy, it is good to wait until the sleepiness comes. Your
Hmm.
eyelids start to be heavy and you're ready to fall asleep, then you go to bed. So they
Hmm.
don't spend time in bed that you're not sleeping and worrying and thrashing around and struggling.
Yeah.
So that's the part I need to add, which is to set a time for sleep and then do the taming the monkey beforehand. Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like a combination. There's a regular schedule. You want to schedule in the 8 hours of sleep, or at least having it in mind. If I wake up at 7 a.m., I want to around 11 p.m. to go to bed so that I have the rest I need. And before that, we can do external and internal ways to put ourselves to sleep. Externally, reading a book, not touching our phones, not having the TV on, but something that can put us in a more settled and relaxing state, as well as kind of that internal factor, meditating, mindfulness, listening to music to help us put us in that mode of sleep.
Now, there's an additional part that I find useful is
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes, like when patients say, you cannot let them go. Those clouds that you have sounds good, but sometimes they do come back and come back.
Mm.
So my analogy actually is actually an aquarium.
Oh.
Like if you go to some tall condos or somewhere, at the bottom they have nice aquarium there. You know those big ones that has very colorful tropical fish. You know what I mean? Mhm.
Yeah.
And then if you try to enjoy that aquarium, you sit back and look at the whole aquarium and allow the fish, the colors moving by to soothe you. And it is important not to follow any single fish.
Mm.
Because if you follow the fish as they go behind the rocks, go among the reeds and everything, you would become quite dizzy, right? Mhm. So in a way, that's the analogy I have, that our mind is like the aquarium. We
Mm-hmm.
need to look at it as the whole aquarium. Even though we notice that there are thoughts coming through or even emotions coming through, They acknowledge they are there, but do not follow them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is what I feel is more analogous to our busy mind, that we have all these things. By developing mindfulness, which we'll talk in the next part of the series, is actually to be able to acknowledge their presence, like you said, like put on the cloud. But then my analogy, I like it better, okay, because the fish do come back.
Yes.
And I have a way for the fish, and I'll tell you what my next step is. With there's these ugly fish, okay, or fish I don't like, but they keep on coming back. What do I do? That's when my patients say they just cannot control it.
Mm-hmm.
So my way is to ask you to prepare a pad and a pencil beside your bed. Not beside it, I'm sorry, you're not in bed, you should be in the chair. You're not sleeping yet. So we put beside your chair or sofa. Anyway, hopefully it's something comfortable. And then you would do all those things we talk about. And then these thoughts, if they come in, if they would not go away, then you jot it down on the pad.
Mm-hmm.
And jot it down by only writing a couple of words so that it reminds you of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a big project coming up at work or in school, you can write it down, project, that's it. And then if there's somebody you really need to talk to, and then you can write it down. Or you're afraid that you have a meeting with the teacher, and then you put it down. So in a way, you jot down things that refuses, this fish that refuse to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something about the past. I just can't get over thinking about my girlfriend who dumped me. So that you can put down too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, putting it down is actually your commitment to address this topic, not at night, but in the daytime.
Yes.
And then fix a time in the next day to look at this pad. So let's say if I say, okay, I will look at that tomorrow at 5 p.m., then this pad you should read tomorrow at 5 p.m. This is the commitment to yourself, because these thoughts would not go away unless you tell them that they would be addressed. So the next day, 5 p.m., look at them. And you find that actually there are only two types of thoughts. One type would be things you can do something about that day. So you would say, okay, if I have to do something about it, and you just got to do it. And just do it. That's all I can do today. Then I do the thing I need to do, and then you cross it out. So in a way, you are addressing something that can be addressed by action instead of rumination. Because in rumination, it doesn't arrive at any, if it doesn't arrive in any action, it's the second type.
Yes.
Second type would be things that you really can't do anything about. But you keep on thinking about it, as if your thinking would lead to something good. But in fact, it only leads to something bad because you're totally anxious and worried, and again, not sleeping.
Yeah.
So you cross out those you can do by doing them. You cross out those you cannot do anything about by throwing them away. So the paper's gone. And the next night, you have the same pad there because some of these items may come up again.
Right.
So you would do that. It is what we're doing is not that this is any magic trick. It is disciplining the mind. So that the mind get used to having a relaxed state at night and dealing with problems only in daytime.
Right.
In fact, the daytime practice is also good in that you deal with things that are addressed by action, which is another topic I would talk about later.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Just and then using this pad, if your mind get used to having things on paper, they would be addressed, it's much more likely that the fish would not come back.
Right. So, there's two parts of this that I'm taking away. There's a visual that the mind can recognize during the night, this aquarium where, if in Toronto, we've got Ripley's Aquarium, we've got aquariums in restaurants and condos. And so recognizing that our thoughts are these big fishes, but also small fishes that are, swimming about, being around us and not focusing on one fish, but because you can't focus on one fish that's going really fast back and forth. And there's a practical part to this too, to sit down in your chair and address, these fish or creatures that are bothering you, that are very in your face at times, and to commit to addressing it, or to not commit to thinking of it as much anymore, and to externalize these thoughts instead of keeping it twirling and spinning around in your mind. Externalizing it can help you take things into action instead of just having a big kind of a tornado in your mind, especially during the worst times of the day, the nighttime. You mentioned the pad and writing it down, externalizing, committing, crossing it out, even if it's not something that you can take action on. How do you find your parents, sorry, pardon me, not your parents, but your patients when using this method?
Actually, it has been helpful for a lot of them. Actually, one little girl, was very good, and she could not sleep, for a while. And then she actually got the dad to go out with her to take a walk that lasted 3 hours before she could get back to sleep. And that was very tough, and she doesn't want it. And she faithfully do this. And I always ask people to do it at least for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because it's a disciplining of the mind. The mind, you cannot change it just over in one night. If you do it consistently over 2 weeks, there's a chance that the mind will start to function in the way that I hope that it would. But then sometimes the mind is very stubborn. Even if you do all this, it may still resist. And that may take a little longer time. And it's very hard for the patient, I know, this method. But if they're committed to do it, one older lady actually did it for a month, and eventually got sleep. It's not totally good, but definitely better than before, and she was grateful.
Yeah. And I think that highlights that every individual has their own journey and experience, whether it can work in those 2 weeks, or even your body might need a little bit more time to adapt to this new and more adaptive way of sleeping and having that in your lifestyle. I think it is important to recognize some people might take 2 weeks, some people might take 1 month, maybe even more than 1 month, and being patient with the process that you're helping your body to put yourself in. A lot of the times we hear people relying on sleeping pills because it's the most immediate. We don't have to wait 2 weeks. We don't have to wait 1 month. Sometimes we do, but most of the time it's almost the immediate way of falling asleep. How about the use of sleeping pills? Some are addicted, some are afraid. Help us understand, Dr. Tide, about
That's
sleeping pills.
quite a big topic, but I'd like to mention something about sleeping pills, because maybe eventually I would have another episode on the pills. For sleeping pill, I just want to say one is that it's a quick fix. And in this very busy urban life, we want quick fix. And that is why people would be attracted to using it. But there's a fear because it has been talked about in being addictive. So actually, when a person look at the bottle, on the one hand, they know it's a quick fix, they would want it. But on the other hand, they're so afraid that once they take a pill or two, they would get addicted. So that puts people in a very difficult quandary, and that actually can contribute to their not sleeping as well. So I just say a few things about the sleep. If you get it from the family doctor, and you need to ask them, what is the period you need for this medication to work? Some people drop the pill and then go to bed right away, and that is usually a problem because the pill may not work that fast. So if it works in an hour, then you have at least an hour that you are in bed, doing all those things we talk about the monkey does, right?
Yeah.
So if you know there are generally two types of pills that are used for sleep. One takes longer and
Yeah.
one type takes shorter.
Mhm.
Ask the doctor which one it is.
Mhm.
The longer one, it may take an hour or two.
Mhm.
So in that case, it's good to take it before you do the taming of the monkey.
Right.
And then the one that is shorter, you should take it at the tail end of that exercise, to take it just before, maybe half an hour before you hope to fall asleep. So
Mhm.
if you are to use the pill, that is important, and very few people are aware of that difference.
Right.
I mentioned that because that's part of doing the method I suggested. Some may still use the pill. They need to use it that way.
Right.
As for the medication, whether it's harmful or addictive, I would rather leave it to the next episode, because it's a bigger topic, not just relating to sleeping pill per se, but a lot of other medication used for mental health.
Yeah. And I'm sure you see this as a psychiatrist, Dr. Ted, patients coming in and asking for an immediate fix, something that can help them right away. And some who are afraid for that fix, for that, for the medication that could be helpful to them. And pills can be a double-edged sword. It can be helpful and fix what's the challenge, but also people might rely on it too much.
So it's almost like when we talk about the pandemic too, taking the vaccine or other things. There's always two sides, and
Yes.
by flip-flopping between the two is the worst thing. The important thing is to look at both together and arrive at the position you have chosen and stick with it. So
Absolutely.
medication, I think a lot of time people come in to see me with great distress, and I would urge them to use that pill to give them some relief. And then I would reassure them that the addiction side actually is not an immediate issue, and it's not a very big issue later, just to help them then. However, there are others who already have the quick fix in their mind, and they would demand that every night I have to sleep the 8 hours. This is what I want. This is what I will get. Then I would have to dissuade them by developing some of other methods to address their chronic sleep problem instead of going to the pill as the first thing. So that's why it's a bit complicated, but I leave that for another talk about medication. But for this, going with my method I suggested, I think that pill may be part of it, and they would look at just the duration, the time that need for them to work, so that it works with the method.
Yes. So viewers, stay tuned for a future part of the series where Dr. Ted will help us understand a little bit more about medication, not about sleep, only about sleeping pills, but many other perspectives that we may not be familiar with. I guess a takeaway from today in terms of the sleeping pills is it works side by side with the method of having the pad and the aquarium. And it all depends on the effective period of your medication, whether it takes a while before you can fall asleep. So doing the method after taking the pill, or the effective period is a little shorter, and you might want to do the method before taking the pill and then being able to fall asleep. So pills and method go side by side to better help face the mental health challenges, insomnophobia, that we've been talking about today. Now, Dr. Ted is also one of the founders of Hong Fook Mental Health Association. He is a part of it. It is a foundation and association that helps Asian populations for 40 years. If you've enjoyed this series and this episode of the series, please give us a like so that it can let us know how we've been doing. It helps us plan for future episodes. It helps us plan for what's helpful and what's not helpful. So please let us know, whether it's a comment, whether it's a like, to give us a support. If you want to donate to Hong Fook Mental Health Foundation, there is a link in our channel as well as the description below. Feel free to pop in